What's going on, folks? Welcome to our Florida A&M 2021 preseason breakdown. And today, of course, we're going to be breaking down the schedule, as you can see, players to watch, and also a couple questions that FAMU left us with when they left the MEAC, and also a couple questions to look forward that we can have answered probably as FAMU transitions into the SWAC. And so without further ado, let's jump right into it. September 5th, against Jackson State, Deion Sanders, he's kind of built Jackson State into a power, I'm not going to lie. Loses a couple people via the transfer portal, like star wide receiver who would have had 1,000 yards, Dalen Baldwin. He's got his son coming in to play quarterback, Shador Sanders. He's got his son playing safety as well, Shiloh. Presents a challenge. But I do still think that the question remains of how fast do these guys gel week one for such a big game. And honestly, I got to say, a lot of people say I shouldn't say this, but I haven't seen so much hype surrounding a game since Florida State and Alabama in 2017. Really haven't. And I think we have a clash of titans similar to that right here, September 5th, Orange Blossom Classic in Miami. But I will say, I think because of the questions surrounding how fast does Jackson State gel week one, I still think FAMU wins this game. It's not going to be an easy one, but I do think FAMU gets it done, and they start out 1-0. Following week, September 11th, against Fort Valley State, I think FAMU wins that as well. Fort Valley State comes back to Tallahassee for another home opener. I think they leave with another loss. I think FAMU gets a win there. September 18th against USF. Jeff Scott is in year 2 of his team. I don't think USF's going to compete for an American Conference Championship, but I do think that they are on the upward trend. I know a lot of FCS experts have FAMU winning this game, or say FAMU could possibly pull off the upset, and quite possibly so. I'd say the same. But at the same time, too, I'm going to be honest and say I think, as I've stated already, year 2 is going to be better than year 1. If FAMU can go in there and get the job done and get a win, I'll put my foot in my mouth and be like, oh my gosh, right. They were right. But for now, I think FAMU does lose this game. I think they do. If they win it, though, heck, I'll be happy. And then that brings us to October 2nd. Back in Bragg, Ezra Gray and Alabama State come calling. This Alabama State, I would say, is more so known for the rushing. Their bread and butter is more so their rushing attack. They got one of the better running backs in the SWAC and possibly in the FCS. They got one of the best offensive lines in the SWAC, as we saw during that spring season. So it's going to present quite a challenge. I think Ezra Gray is going to have a decent day at the office, nothing too serious. I think ultimately FAMU's defense does stop him at certain key moments of the game, and I do think FAMU gets the win here. This is also going to be, too, interesting enough, Alabama State's first trip to Tallahassee, to Bragg, since 2008. I know recently they played Florida State and got beat, so that was their last trip to Tallahassee, but this is their first trip to Bragg since 2008. And that, of course, brings on October 9th. South Carolina State comes calling next. Buddy Pugh comes back to Tallahassee. First time since 2018 when they won 44-21 over FAMU, but last football season in 2019, FAMU beat them 42-38. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if Tyrese Nick is still there or not. I think he is, but everybody knows South Carolina State, physical, tough team. It's their mantra. They take on the mantra of their head coach and what South Carolina State's based on. But I do think FAMU has enough firepower to take down South Carolina State for the second time in a row. And also, too, I think that this will be FAMU's first win over South Carolina State in Tallahassee in a long time. Because we all know it's been a while since FAMU last beat South Carolina State in Tallahassee. So I got him taking a W there. And that brings us to October 16th against the defending SWAC champs, Alabama A&M. Bulldogs come calling, or you travel to Huntsville to play the Bulldogs. Tyrese Nick, oh my gosh, not Tyrese Nick. Y'all bear with me. Oh my goodness. Akil Glass, Deacon Jones Award winner, named by the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Good player, decent offense, to be honest. The one question I have though is, he throws a heck of a deep ball, but those short and intermediate passes are the ones that I do have questions about, and I think that is where FAMU can capitalize. He's going to test the secondary deep, so I know he's going to test Marquise Bell in the secondary deep, but in the end, I think that Alabama State somehow sneaks away with this one. The defending SWAC champs from the 2021 spring season, I think, get a dub here. Coach Maynard also has a decent roster, if we're being honest. They really do. I know he brought in a lot of Power 5 transfers, but I do think that Alabama A&M gets a win there. And that brings on next Mississippi Valley, October 23rd. FAMU travels to the home of Mississippi Valley, Jerry Rice's old stomping grounds, and I'm not going to waste my time with this. I'm going to do with this like how I used to do for Delaware State. I think FAMU gets a win here as well. And that takes us now to homecoming, October 30th. FAMU takes on Grambling. And I know what you all are thinking. It was very bold of FAMU when the schedule dropped, and everybody was like, how dare they put Grambling on the schedule for homecoming. Look, it makes for excitement. It sells tickets. It makes people want to see it. You want to see the team Eddie Robinson built into a power against the team Jake Gaither built into a power. I get it, of course. Who wouldn't want to see that? I've been dying to see Grambling play, honestly, for the longest time. I'm finally going to get the chance to see it. But I will say, I think that this is kind of a rebuilding year for Grambling, given what we saw in the spring. And I know people are going to say things change and all this stuff, but you lost a quarterback to the transfer portal to Tennessee State. They lost one of their coaches on offense. So I think Grambling's still trying to rebuild. It's going to be they still are one of the tougher physical teams in the SWAC, as they've always been, and as history would say. So, I will say I do think FAMU gets a win here on homecoming. Also, a lot of respect for Coach Fobbs and what he's done. I think sooner or later Grambling's going to get it fixed and get it turned around, but not on October 30th. And that leads us into the Southern Jaguars, November 6th, in Baton Rouge. FAMU travels to Baton Rouge for the first time since 2008, where they won that game 52-49. And honestly, I think with Dawson Odom's gone to Norfolk State now, a lot of these players are going to be in a new system. And you've even got things such as the transfers that Southern brought in from Troy University, and they've also got one of the better defensive players in the SWAC, who I believe is either a linebacker or a defensive end. He was named as a preseason All-American by some, and I think this is going to present a challenge. I think they're going to challenge for the SWAC West, of course, again too. But I think in some way, some shape, somehow, it's going to be a close game like it was in 2019, and I think FAMU steals this one as well. And that now takes us to Arkansas Pine Bluff on November 13th. And look, I know a lot of people are going to say this is the trap game. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, the Louisiana schools are going to take so much out of FAMU going into November 13th. Look, one's in a rebuild, one's replacing a coach, and then Arkansas Pine Bluff comes up. I don't think these two games are going to take as much out of FAMU as some would say. Arkansas Pine Bluff is going to present a challenge that I think FAMU will be ready for. It's going to be, and I know a lot of festivities and stuff are going to be going on and stuff saying, you know, guess what's next week, and oh my gosh, this is what you did the week before. Can't buy into that type of stuff, but I think Coach Simmons and the staff will have guys motivated and prepared for that to not happen. And I think FAMU goes into Arkansas and they get the job done. I think FAMU walks out with a win. So look at that. 8-2 going into the Florida Classic. You're sitting pretty at 8-2 going into the Florida Classic. And quite honestly, look, you haven't won this game in 9 years. A lot of people want to say, look, FAMU wouldn't have won in 2020 either, although I think they would have if you want me to be honest. But how do you win this game and you haven't won it in 9 years? I think it goes back to what Quinn Gray said on the Running Gun podcast. You have to get over the fear of losing this game after having lost it so many times. And I'll be the first to say that made great sense. That made a lot of sense. Because, you know, I will say I think the last 3 Florida Classics, I think FAMU had the better team, but just wasn't able to close it out. And I think if they can flip that around and close it out rather than not play with the fear of losing, I think that they can win this game. I really can. But if you ask me, to be honest, I'm going to believe it when I see it. You have to prove it. You got to prove it. Got to prove it. I think FAMU loses this one. I'm hoping they don't. But I think that this is a loss. I think this is also one of 3 games that might determine the SWAC East. The first one, like Coach Simmons and Dion said in the Orange Blossom Classic press conference, I think this game could determine the SWAC East. I think October 16th could also determine the SWAC East. I think November 20th could determine the SWAC East, depending on what Bethune-Cookman brings to the table, or really what the stakes are regarding, you know, Florida Classic and the Magic City Classic. So you have to factor all that stuff in. But I do believe if you can flip one of these 2, turn them into wins, you have a chance. Preferably, you can flip this one into a win. And then by some miracle, possibly, puts you in a position to play for a SWAC title. Maybe Alabama State upsets Alabama A&M in the Magic City Classic. Or not upsets, but, you know, I think that would put FAMU in position to play for a SWAC title. Now, let's say FAMU wins the SWAC East and they go to the SWAC Championship. Who do they match up with? Honestly, I'm going to go with, I think it comes down to a rematch of the SWAC Championship from 2019 between Alcorn and Southern. I think one of those 2 teams in the regular season wins, and I think the winner of that game controls their destiny and goes on to win the SWAC West. I know Arkansas Pine Bluff had a very strong showing in the spring, but again, things change. People come, people go, people make adjustments, things of that nature. And I think, of course, you know, with Alcorn being back in the mix and having rested, I think that makes for an interesting occurrence. And so I think that's who I think FAMU matches up with. I think the SWAC Championship will either be played in Tallahassee, Baton Rouge, or Lorman, Mississippi. Preferably, for all intents and purposes, Tallahassee. But let's say FAMU wins the SWAC Championship over FAMU or over Alcorn or Southern, going to the Celebration Bowl. Who from whatever's left of the MEAC do they match up with? Honestly, I'm going to go with either a rematch from October 9th against Buddy Pugh and the Dogs from South Carolina State, or Dawson Odoms in Norfolk State. I think one of those 2 teams wins the MEAC, advances to the Celebration Bowl, and has a date with FAMU. That's what I'm thinking, ultimately. And with that, we're now on to the players to watch for this season. In regards to players to watch, the first player ultimately, or the first position room ultimately that I'm looking at, to be honest, is in fact that quarterback room. And honestly, the question ultimately is like, who's going to start at quarterback week 1 against Jackson State? I don't know. Honestly, we've asked Coach KJ Black this question before on the Running On podcast. Didn't give us anything. I told him, I was like, I'd rather not know until prior to the game. So I mean, that's my thing. But I honestly, Rashawn McKay, Cameron Sapp, anybody else really on that roster, someone that's on campus that we may not even know about that came via transfer portal. Who knows? Somebody's on there. Somebody's available. Somebody's going to start. Whoever starts is going to reap the benefits of these weapons in this offense. And at the running back position, you got Bishop Bonnet, you got Eddie Tillman coming back from injury, you got Terrell Jennings, who honestly kind of reminds me of Mike Allstott and Jerome Bettis. At wide receiver, you've got David Manigo, Xavier Smith, who had 1,000 yards in 2019, could have 1,000 yards in 2021. You got Chad Hunter coming back from an injury. You got Jeremiah Pruitt. You got also Jamari Shareed, who transfers in from Texas State. Any of these guys, and then plus, keep in mind, that wide receiver room is so crowded that you can't even mention everybody on this video. At tight end also too, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing the tight ends more utilized in this offense as the quarterbacks have grown in comfort and everything is kind of figured out now and going into year 3, or really I want to call it year 4, really year 3.5 with Willie Simmons because of COVID stopping everything in 2020. But I'm definitely looking at, Nick Dixon and Kamari Young, both guys, very key pieces to this offense. Looking forward to both having a big season. And then on the offensive line, the leader, of course, on that unit, Brian Crawford. And, also, too, a lot of people aren't talking about it, but that offensive line from FAMU, 2 Florida State transfers, a Wake Forest transfer, a couple impact freshmen coming in. Like, that offensive line, nobody's talking about it now, but that offensive line is going to be something special. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Florida State's got offensive line that transferred to FAMU. Florida State didn't have that good of an offensive line to begin with. Yeah, but keep in mind, too, there's a guy named Landon Dickerson who played in that offensive line at Florida State as well and struggled, then went to Alabama, became a man-child, and got drafted. So don't think just because these linemen went to Florida State and transferred out that they must not be that good. That's one of the things you should not assume, because these guys may very well walk into Florida A&M, get on that offensive line, and dominate. I'm just saying. But, on the defensive side, you got to start with the defensive line. You got Savion Williams, who transfers in from Tennessee State. Huge presence in the middle, going to plug a lot of holes. And then also, too, you got Jason Romero Jr., who transfers in from Eastern Carolina at the defensive end position. At linebacker, you got the head honcho in the middle. That's now the leader on this defense in the front 7, Derek Mayweather. Strong presence, comes in as the leader now with Elijah Richardson now gone. So that's going to be another key piece to watch. And then even as well in the secondary, which honestly I think the secondary is going to be better than it was last year. And the secondary was a very well played secondary that dominated late in the season. And, Eric Smith coming back from the true freshman season is going to be extraordinary. Marquise Bell, All-American. He's going to be a force to deal with this season. You've got Kendall Bowler, who transfers in at corner from Mercer. That's going to be a pretty good defense this season. And that's going to be a pretty strong secondary. A lot of speed. All these guys will come up and hit you, make tackles. I trust Marquise Bell to play in the box. But my question is, who's the other safety that's going to go next to Marquise Bell? That's the question I have. And I don't know. But maybe someone that transferred in might be on roster right now. Who knows? but we're going to find out this season. Specialists, of course, the best punter, best kicker in the country, FCS or FBS, Chris Fadul. If he was eligible to win the Ray Guy or the Lou Groza Award, he definitely should get it, if you ask me. He definitely should. And then, of course, a couple impact freshmen that I'm looking forward to having. I don't know, and honestly, I saw someone on YouTube call this guy the secret weapon that Willie Simmons is hiding at linebacker. Lucius Lattimore out of Trinity Christian High School in Jacksonville, Florida. He is a hitter. He will hit you. Honestly, kind of reminds me of Telvin Smith when he was at Florida State and what he can become. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Lucius Lattimore plays a little bit this season as a freshman. And then also, too, Carl Nesmith, the defensive end who comes in, huge presence, very physical, can make plays in the open field, can get after the quarterback, get after the running back. I'm excited to see these impact freshmen play, predominantly on this defense, because oh my gosh, this defense is going to be fun. A lot of people are talking about FAMU's offense, but the defense is going to be force, an absolute force. I think this season. I know the president coined them the Dark Clouds defense. I'm buying it. I haven't even seen it yet, but I'm buying it. Now for a couple questions and facts regarding FAMU and the SWAC. Will the running game improve in 2021? FAMU's rushing attack ranked last in the MEAC. Yeah, ranked last in the MEAC with 920 yards total on the ground in 2019. I think that does improve given the fact of running backs that are coming in via transfer portal, via the fact that Eddie Tillman is coming back from an injury and he's primed for a big year. You got Terrell Jennings, the muscle. You got Bishop Bonnet, the speed back, coming in. I think that the running game will improve. I don't think that the running game will be dead last in the SWAC, of course, given some of these teams right here. I think that the running game will improve. A lot of people are looking at the passing game with the wide receivers, but I think the running game gets a lot better. Will Xavier Smith repeat on a 1,000-yard season? I think he does. And I think it's gonna be a little bit tougher for it to happen because of the added speed with Jamari Shareed and coming in, who's also a Blazer from Texas State. But I think it's doable. I think a couple of guys could get 1,000 yards if this offense flows like I feel like it's capable of flowing. And then also too, of course, what can we expect from the SWAC and FAMU with these new game day environments? I would honestly say, a lot of people don't want to say it's going to be SEC type, but it's going to be SEC type. It's going to be very hostile crowds. I think you can expect that. The joy of it is the March 100 gets to travel more to a lot of these games, and I think that's going to be beneficial too. But ultimately, man, I'm just excited. I'm excited to see these crowds. I know a lot of people say it's rough in the SWAC, but I'm looking forward to just seeing the environments and stuff and the trash talk going back and forth. Let's add a little bit of flavor in the stands and stuff, that's my thing. But another interesting fact, FAMU has not lost on a Sunday. I don't know how many people knew that, but 2013, FAMU starts the season on a Sunday against Mississippi Valley, wins 27-14. Later on in the decade, 2019, tropical storm runs right through the Panhandle. They have to move the game against North Carolina A&T to Sunday. FAMU comes out, they win that 34-31 in overtime. FAMU plays Jackson State on a Sunday, September 5th. I'm just saying, who knows? We'll see. But, with that being said, that's going to do it for me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Y'all leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tell me how I did. If I did good, let me know. If I did bad, light up that comment section. Let me know. By all means, definitely. As well, too, follow us on all of our social media platforms. I know I already said YouTube. Follow us on YouTube at Penalty Talk. Like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at Penalty Talk. Follow us on Twitter at Penalty Talk. Follow us on Instagram at Throw Flags. Check us out on Spotify. We got a whole bunch of episodes of the Running Gun podcast, as well as other preseason breakdown episodes and stuff. And, you know, as always, you know, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see you around.